All right, we're going to start here with ASIC supply chains. That's what the whole thing is about, this panel is about. And when it comes to supply chains, there's a lot of factors that go into building something as advanced and complicated as an ASIC. And some people may see that whole operation as a little opaque and mysterious. Satoshi like to work behind the scenes. So what are the things going on behind the scenes when it comes to the supply chain that makes it difficult for people in the industry and maybe people outside of the industry to understand about that process, getting the parts?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is when you look at like when we talk about ASICs, we're talking about the actual physical miner, right? We're not just talking about the little ASIC chips that are in the miner. So it's the process of acquiring those, whether they're manufactured in various places throughout Asia and overseas, getting them into the US, getting access to them, whether that's through a manufacturer like we have sitting on stage, buying them directly from those manufacturers depending on quantity. And if you don't have the ability to do that, or maybe there's, uh, not a whole lot of inventory around, then you have to go to third parties. So there's a vast network of brokers that exist within the space. And then from that standpoint, if you're buying them overseas, you have to get them into the US. If you're looking for units that are in the US, that's a different set of brokers you got to go through. And so it becomes kind of convoluted after a while. And so I think it's a lot better than it used to be back in like 2017, 2018. This was actually a much more difficult process. And it was a much more narrow group of people who had access to ASIC miners in the way we do today. Today, the manufacturers have done a great job of coming out, being more public, working directly with miners in the space on a more regular basis and having those conversations more direct. And so there's a lot less opaqueness than there used to be. And there's a lot of walls that have been kind of broken down over the years and creating more congruency in this channel. But depending on inventory, because there's only so much available, right? There's only so much capacity to the foundry, only so much capacity to manufacture chips to get them put together. And then from that standpoint, once they're manufactured, all the miners are trying to buy, or all the companies are trying to buy the same hardware. And so if we're all going after the same thing, you end up with inventory and supply chain issues that they make it harder to get. A handful of people get access to those, and then they're trying to resell them and distribute them. And they might go 3 or 4 distributors before they ever make it to the hands of the end miner. So I think that's kind of a broad spectrum of the mess that makes that supply chain look opaque.
Do any of our other speakers have any comments there on what makes that such a convoluted process and if there's anything that can be done to help streamline or make some of that a little bit more accessible?
Yeah, I can add a little bit, just building on the comments Shannon just made. Another important factor is for you, like as if you're a miner or you're planning to start a mining operation, to have a clear procurement strategy. That's I guess is the biggest mismatch between like the manufacturer and the market is like we as manufacturer we put out units and we expect to sell them over a certain period of time, right? And we start selling them, like sometimes the resellers come in, or like when you are ready to pull the trigger, we might not have the model that you were looking for to begin with, whether because you were raising funds or any sort of like operational bottleneck. But the bottom line is, if you plan your operation well and you place like a contract at the right time, you will be able to secure the machine, the quantity, and the delivery you're looking for. So plan in advance and be prepared.
I have one comment.
Yeah, I
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I totally agree with that. In maybe last 10 years, yeah, at the beginning, the shortage would comes from the chips. So it means, just maybe based on the economic payback period, you would just ask as much as possible from the manufacturers. But right now, yeah, you can see that it's easy to calculate the payback period, and of course, from the supply, we can see that the shortage just maybe disappeared. We have enough capacity from the semiconductors. So it means right now you can do well done from the beginning, and you can just try to maybe do final management for the minings, not just from the one point right now.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think one of the biggest risks when you're sourcing, can you hear me okay? One of the biggest risks is your counterparty risk. So you have great manufacturer partners, but not everyone can buy directly from the manufacturer. So they have to go through a network of brokers, deal with international logistics. And then you have credit risk with those counterparties. So let's say you buy X model, or let's say S21s, and from time to time, those hash rates may vary based on what you have available in inventory. So I think it's really important that if you're sourcing ASICs, that you're mitigating your counterparty risk and trying to create certainty in the transaction. Because I think all of us have had an experience where, hey, you do a deal and maybe everything or a couple of things go sideways. So it's making sure that when you have a deal go through, you have good counterparties that are going to work with you and also create certainty in that transaction.
I think one of the reasons why we have these supply chain problems is because we have about 100 too few manufacturers, right? There's just a couple of them. Like, we're surprised that we can't get enough of these machines out of them. We need a lot more manufacturers.
So I can add to that. I think one of the reasons we've entered the space with Block is to make it somewhat more accessible for people, to eliminate counterparty risk. Dealing with an American company, we've built over 30 million consumer devices. Our payment terminals are used in a lot of venues across the world. So one of the things we want to eliminate is mostly for the little guys. If they want to get a miner, they can get a miner. They don't have to, go and wait till it's gone through 3 or 4 different sets of hands. They can go on the site, get the same price as the big guy or whoever else is getting it, and make sure that, the whole supply isn't gone right away. We're going to try to do the best we can. But that's how we kind of see it. We've heard a lot of these pain points, and whether it's, shipping, DDP, Xworks, or, where we manufacture, tariffs, like we've got a lot of experience in that stuff. And I think it's something we want to bring to the table and streamline the process of, buying, deploying, and then even using.
Okay, to the source of all of the miners, and as I hope the miners shipping process, the manufacturing process can be printed in the blockchain, so everyone can trace all of the process. So the Bitcoin bring us a lot of interesting projects. So I hope to maybe as the manufacturer, we hope to be all our miners can be transparent to the public in the blockchain. Maybe every users can can source their all the materials from this blockchain. That's my opinion.
When it comes to the building of machines, I gotta be honest, this is the very first time I've ever thought about the supply chains and getting the components to build an ASIC. And I imagine this is true of a lot of supply chains. Is the reason that we don't hear this topic talked about, like I've never seen tweets, I've never seen podcasts talk about the supply chain aspect. Is it simply because it's one of those things that as long as it's working, nobody questions it? Kind of like when the pandemic hit, we saw these supply chains disrupted. Or is there, I don't want to say nefarious, but are there other reasons that this isn't talked about? Is it simply just a boring nature and if it's working, it's working? Or is there some other reason that this is such an under-discussed topic?
I would say that this is like a manufacturing question, right? And like most people wouldn't be interested to know the minutia of it, because like any manufacturing endeavor is like a complex system that requires several components sourced across the globe, and then like you need to put them together and test and then ship. And that's not for ASICs, but for basically any electronics. And I think it's just something that people are not really interested at, unless, again, like during the pandemic, when you start hearing, oh, yeah, no, there is a shortage of chips. Like we cannot produce cars, fridges, and ASICs. But other than that, yes, I would say like the public is not very keen to know the minutia of a manufacturing endeavor.
I got to get you some better podcasts. Like it's a topic that I've been discussing and talking about with people for a long time. So my first experience buying a miner was I ordered some Dragon Mints, sight unseen, batch one from China. Right. So any of you guys know the backstory on Dragon Mints, right? That was the new miner. It was competing with the S9 at the time, slightly better terahash. The fun backstory with the manufacturer of that and a bunch of other cool, great stories you get to tell now. But back then you'd order a first batch of miners and you didn't know when they were going to show up. right? That happened a lot. Is things that get ordered, they get delayed, they get pushed back. They showed up like 3 months after they weren't profitable anymore. It was a wonderful learning experience. Back then, you also were literally sending Bitcoin to buy miners blind to people you were meeting on Telegram. And so it's come a long ways. Today, there's a lot of resources to buy hardware, right? You can go to Compass Mining website, you can buy it there, you can buy it from Luxor, you can buy it from all these other marketplaces. Like there's lots of people selling miners that are now more visible to the public. They have podcasts, they have websites, they're US based companies that we inventory stuff in North America. We have warehouse supply chains in North America, and so do these other entities that are selling these. And so for a lot of people, it went from that really difficult, scary environment of, am I sending a scammer a bunch of Bitcoin that I'm never going to see my hardware, or will they ever show up, to, well, I trust the guys that I met at the Kaboom Racks booth because I talked to them in person. I've talked to someone else who bought from Kaboom Racks. The miner showed up and had a cool sticker on it. I see the guy talking on, Twitter all the time. And so now people like that is their easy access to the miner. It created a simpler process. They don't have to see that entire back end. Like we deal with the back end process knowing that like, hey, it's Chinese New Year. Did we order enough fans? Did we order enough control boards? Did we order enough capacitors? Like, do we have all of our components for our repair shop? Because when like Chinese New Year happens, it shuts down. Like things don't come to the US. It's very like, it's a blackout dates as far as that goes. And so they never see that backside of it. They just see the kind of forward facing companies. If they go to the Compass Marketplace to buy a used miner, a new miner, or, they take possession of their one that's being hosted, like they just deal with a US facing company. They don't have to see that backside. And so as long as that transaction with that front company is clean, no one asks those questions. So kind of like you said, it's out of sight, out of mind. Whereas the larger companies that are dealing with this, whether we're providing a service to someone or acquiring hardware for ourselves, we care about that backside. Like we had to build our own logistics company to be able to import stuff because we could do it faster, better. We ship to 28 countries now. And all of that was to like fulfill a need that we had because we needed to import miners and other hardware. But now it becomes something, okay, we figured it out. Now we can provide this as a service. So it creates that streamlined like appearance to everybody else. They don't have to see the mess. People like, I guess, if you're in the US, you like having that, like everything easy. You need the easy button. Was that like a Staples commercial I just did?
Yeah. I mean, what you said sounds completely normal when you're in the mining world. But if you think of any other consumer facing device and you're like, we have to buy it so people will buy it from us, like that doesn't apply anywhere else, right? People can still, like, you can go to Dell.com and buy a computer, but no one's bringing a bunch of Dell computers. People don't have to deal with that, shipping and logistics and all that. And it's funny, like what you said is a vast improvement on how it was, but I still think there's a lot more we can do in the space. And ideally, at some point we get there.
Okay, I kind of figured that was a pretty straightforward question because it's like you said, who cares about where exactly the leather's coming from for your boots or whatever. Now, when it comes to all of the supply chain issues that you've been talking about here, what are the largest, or I guess it'd be the smallest bottlenecks where you see holdups? Like, hey, we've got everything that we can build here, but I don't have the wiring because copper mines aren't producing copper right now, or if not that, what are the bottlenecks that you see, or is it time dependent, like you were talking about in regards to the Chinese New Year?
Just to piggyback a little bit on what you said, it's bad planning. The biggest bottlenecks I see, because we sell infrastructure to so many people now, is just bad planning. The reason why I can sell cables to someone to run their, S19s is because they didn't remember to buy them when they ordered their S19s, or they had ordered a PDU and didn't pay attention to the plug type and they needed an adapter or a different cable or a different plug. Or they, we've been doing it long enough. We understand there's going to be a certain amount of failure rate on fans, and I don't want to RMA a miner because a fan went bad, so I'm just going to buy a bunch of fans. So stocking, inventorying, planning, like that's the biggest bottleneck we see, is people's lack of planning. As far as like getting infrastructure in within the Bitcoin mining space, like I don't see a whole lot of bottlenecks. It's just paying attention. Like if you have to get something manufactured, ordering it in time to get it manufactured. Manufacturing days are super fast now. Like, like that's the reason why so much stuff is outsourced to Asia, is their manufacturing time is super small. It's not necessarily because it's the most cost-effective component. It's because they can manufacture it faster and ship it here faster than I can get it manufactured in the US, right? It's a speed thing. And Bitcoin mining runs extremely fast. Altcoin miners, they don't have that same ability, right? It's not something that's a robust thing. Like we used to host a decent amount of altcoin miners throughout facilities, but if it was a manufacturer that wasn't in the space for a while, it was a new piece of hardware and something broke, we couldn't get parts. Like we could fix anything, but if we couldn't get parts to fix it, well, then we're scrapping other units, right? Okay, I got 5 dead ones. I'm gonna pull the chip off this one to put it on that one, and I'm putting parts together because there's no backbone infrastructure there. So that was a holdup. Now, when you deal with Bitcoin miners, like these manufacturers, they have extra parts, they have extra chips. It's easy to get a hold of. There's multiple resellers now. It's cleaned up a lot. Like, and I think that's a big thing that we feel like it's cleaned up a lot. But then going over there, it's still not walking into Apple and getting your phone fixed and knowing there's going to be X amount of brand new iPhones on release date. Everybody's going to be able to get one. It's still not there.
Scott, when it comes to the Bitaxes, is the bottleneck issue sort of the same there? I was talking to Matt from Solo Satoshi, and he was saying that they can't just get the chips to build the Bitaxes. Part of the issue is that you have to get a whole ASIC and then take it apart and then build the Bitaxes. So it's a whole other operation entirely. Are the bottlenecks similar, or it sounds like it might be a little bit more nuanced there?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. The bottleneck in producing Bitaxes is getting the chips right now, because we use the Bitmain chips and there's no official source to get them, not in any quantity or in any way that's suitable for sort of mass production. It's kind of ridiculous. I mean, that's why we're looking to move off of Bitmain chips. This is some sort of better solution there, so that we can streamline that and start to really scale this, because there clearly is the demand.
All right. Very good.
I think one of the other bottlenecks that I'd like to address is, as you alluded to, the mining industry buying ASICs is not like going and buying an Apple computer, right? Naturally, there's a higher defect rate with this type of equipment. And I think one of the industry challenges is repair and RMA process. I mean, how many times do you get maybe 3% or 5% defect rate and you have to go through that process? And I think one of the bottlenecks is skilled labor, skilled repair techs, reliable shops. That, hey, if you have a broken miner, how do I send that out, get it fixed, and get it online and hashing as quickly as possible? And again, it goes to having good counterparties and trying to create certainty. And that's something that we specialize in at Repairabit, is how can we provide institutional grade service to getting these miners fixed and redeployed as quickly as possible?
And personally, I have ideas of how to improve the process. If the manufacturers can constitute a union, so our team can be open to the customers. So you can customize your system. So we can supply the chip to you. So so all of the we can define the uniform, the interface, the keys, etc. So I hope that all of the manufacturer can only supply the chip to the customers. So their farm, their PSU, their control board can be the standard components. So each miner can develop and can run their miners by themselves. So I hope to this business, the mining ASICs, will be more and more open to customers. Then, this is my personal idea.
And just to add to that, I mean, I think one of the things, no matter how good you build it, it's going to eventually break. And so the thing is, what do you do when that happens? Instead of people trying to reverse engineer, like whether it's Repairabit, can we give you proper instructions, proper tools, and an easy way to even source replacement components for those repairs? Because the manufacturer doesn't have to do everything. People usually don't want to, whether it's geography or, cost, whatever it may be, or speed, whatever the best way, because at the end of the day, it all comes down to uptime. And this is just another way to measure uptime, right? And so I think it makes perfect sense to make sure that there's what you can do in warranty, and then how do you help people want to service their stuff after warranty. And I don't think a lot of people think about that right now, manufacturers. Yeah.
That's insane to try and repair something when you have basically no documentation as to how it works. Like, you just kind of trying stuff until it starts working again.
Not breaking anymore.
Yeah, on the repair side, it's something we've been doing for about 5 years, and all of our processes have been pretty much reverse engineered. So it's I'm very fortunate to have a great team of about 100 techs, and a lot of trial and error there.
Talk about like slowing down the sort of supply chain and then like keeping miners up and running. I mean, obviously you guys are very good that you've developed this body of knowledge and sort of tricks of the trade as to how to keep these things running. But like there's a lot of miners out there and there's a lot of them that need repairing. Like if we're going to scale this thing up and keep this whole mining industry working, like this has got to change. I would agree.
Yeah, just on the repair side, there's clearly an opportunity. But as far as the logistics side, how much of an opportunity is there for there to be like there's a lot of minor companies out here, but I don't see a logistics company. Is it pretty much to each individual company to do the sourcing, or do you guys collaborate at all, or is it pretty much, hey, you're on your own, good luck, hope you can figure out what you need to get the parts that you need?
Yeah, so something similar to what Compass has done, we actually started our own logistics company as well. And it's about how do you vertically integrate and control the flow of materials, and something that we're specifically looking at. So we're North American, but we're opening a Middle East location because we're seeing with the new administration and some issues with borders and tariffs that, hey, that's another point of friction. And if you have miners that you want to get deployed right away, you don't have time to deal with that, right? And so for us, it's how are we looking at the market from a global perspective to make sure that we can service our clients? And we're seeing a tremendous amount of flow into the Middle East. For example, if you're not focused on the logistics side of your business and streamlining that and mitigating and managing the tariffs, you're not doing business correctly, in my opinion. And I'm sure, Shannon, you could probably speak to that in some detail on the logistics side, right?
Yeah, I think there are two logistics companies here. I think I saw OIA had a booth, and then Crypto Logistics, right? So there's been a few companies pop up, and it was very much like, OIA is a more traditional, yeah, I guess logistics brokerage house. And then but it same thing you just said. Like we started our logistics company because we needed better options. So we had to learn. And you'll see Vishnu running around here and talk to him about it. Like it's a huge learning curve. I've never dealt with that before. And so that's the reason it becomes a service that we can provide. And I think it's an endless learning curve. And then obviously we're dealing with all the tariffs right now, right? We got a new Trump tariff every day and a new Canada, Mexico, and whatever. Like that becomes something that's like now a new challenge you have to juggle, is understanding the impacts of those tariffs. Is it going to affect a Bitcoin miner? Is it just on steel and aluminum? Is there enough aluminum in a Bitcoin miner to be a part of that tariff? Is it all electronics? Like it starts to become much more nuanced. And then the next piece of that is like, well, when you are shipping stuff, there's also the insurance side, right? Like who's insuring it while it's shipping? Is it insured from Asia to the US, from Canada to the US, from the US, like whatever that piece is. And that's like you mentioned components a little bit ago, right? So there's more access to components today than there ever has been. And as far as like learning how to do repair, like I remember back in the day, and you know this probably better than I do, you've been doing it longer than I do. There was like a few companies you could go to Bitmain, you go to China, and you go through the like repair certification. It's improved vastly since then. And, they had a few third parties doing repair certification. But it's a very rapid pace because every new miner that comes out is going to have new things you have to learn. And so it turns out that human capital, those skilled labor, become kind of that key component. Guys who can quickly figure that out before we have to reach out to the manufacturers and get, more training. It's kind of a balancing act. But on the logistics side, there's there are other companies that are here today that had logistics companies and then they are gone, and it comes and goes. Because we're trying to get into it's a new industry. Bitcoin mining touches so many facets of so many industries, and we just got to learn them all if we're going to be successful and be nimble and succeed.
I just want to add something here, like on the logistics side of things, from like a manufacturer perspective. Like, of course, we ship the miners here, but to mitigate some of these risks, we are engaged in onshoring some of our production here to the United States. So as a result, like our clients wouldn't have to deal with the customs and shipping, right? They would just have to basically, deal with internal logistics plus sales tax, but ideally not. But Yeah, and it's a big project. Like we are expanding the capacity to be able to service at the scale that the market demands. I think that's not. It's important to mention because it's not like 1 or 2 units, but a few thousand units that will be available for purchase here in the United States.
Yeah, actually, yeah, we also just realized that the logistics should be a very important part. Yeah, for the miners get their hardware on time. So yeah, our solution is just try to maybe move the manufacturers from the China to US, and we can provide the localized support. It will just maybe reduce the risk from the logistic, and we can just easy to get the promised support from our local warehouse, and also just to support any requirement from the local suppliers.
Have these challenges been a net good for for your companies? Like, it doesn't sound like you got into Bitcoin mining to do logistics. I'm not hearing that from anyone, but you've kind of been forced to get into the logistics side of things. Has this been beneficial? Like you mentioned that it's been Bitcoin touches so many things. Well, I wouldn't have expected that a Bitcoin miner company, ASIC development company, would have to get into logistics. Has that been a net boon for you?
Yeah, I think it's more of how do I create a convenience or create certainty for our clients, right? So, for instance, we have an insurance company by the name of Evertas. So it's how do you insure miners when they're at the mining facility, but also how do you put the proper stock throughput policies in place so that if you're shipping internationally or domestically, and God forbid, there's units get hit by a train or units get stolen or anything else, you're fully covered, right? The last thing you want to do is take a total loss. So our approach was logistics isn't a material amount of our revenue, but hey, if our clients can work with us to do repair or source used ASICs, or we provide liquidity on broken units, so we'll buy units, the logistics was just a complementary aspect of that. Most people want a one-stop shop, and something that we work really hard on is how do we work with all the great companies in the industry, these wonderful manufacturers and everyone else, to create a seamless transaction for their clients and our clients. So we just built the company out of necessity.
I mean, if I can just pitch in, like I think logistics is like energy, right? For Bitcoin, it's a industry that permeates like all aspects, right? There is no escape from that. And in the beginning, like you were dealing with a certain scale, and now is a multi-billion industry with huge amounts of goods to ship globally, right? So the necessity, it's almost like it's an imposition, right? Everyone needs to have the logistical part like very cleared and figured out as organic as it can be now.
I have a suggestion. So to the local miners, we to supply the Dogecoin miners. We cannot. In fact, we cannot resolve the logistic issues, especially to the U.S. I think maybe I suggest our team to ship the miner to the U.S. first, such as to ship to our Houston office. When customer online, he can visit our offices and to take all of the spot machine, not the future machines. Maybe this will help the customer to confirm their payment security, their shipment security. So ship the miners to the U.S. first, then sell them.
And I think that's something that we might also overlook in this space is that everybody in Bitcoin mining came from somewhere else, right? So we may not have been exposed to industries that already had to deal with, logistics and supply chains at this level. So if we came from a different industry that maybe some other part of our company had to deal with it, like if you weren't a large manufacturer or a large entity in general, you generally don't see logistics, right? No one knows the logistics when you go buy an Apple iPhone. No one knows the logistics when you go buy your Dell computer. They don't see on the back end a manufacturer securing capacity at TSMC or Samsung, getting capacitors from other locations, shipping them to a new location to be assembled, getting a PCB board manufactured, all the R&D that went in before that to happen in the first place. And like that's and then that's happening overseas. We don't do any of that here because like for any of those companies, like it's all done somewhere else. TSMC is building a foundry in the US, right? But they said they're going.
Yeah, Arizona, I think.
Oh yeah. But it's like it's not here yet, right? So all this happens other places. So other entities have had to deal with the logistics standpoint and the supply chain standpoint, where a lot of people who got into Bitcoin mining got there from a similar path to me. It was like I learned about Bitcoin and then I was like, I'm gonna mine Bitcoin, but then I couldn't. So I started mining Ethereum on GPUs. Then eventually I bought my first ASICs and my wife kicked me out of my basement. I had to go like mine in a real facility. And so like a lot of us weren't exposed to that world. So it's something we probably should have prepared for and planned for, but we didn't do a good job of it. So then we depended on other people. We thought we could just call a manufacturer who is a manufacturing company, a logistics company, and order stuff from them, and they'd have all the logistics sorted out, even though they're a global, they sell globally. They, you got to pick it up in China, you got to pick it up in Hong Kong, you got to pick it up in wherever, Malaysia or, whatever that situation is. And so it may be much more of a facet that Bitcoin miners were coming from other places that didn't have to deal with manufacturing, supply chains, and logistics.
So every 4 years there's a halving. Some people say that the whole halving cycles are done. I imagine that's had an impact on the sales of ASIC miners. Do you think that's going to continue? Do you think that that's a thing of the past, or is some point in the next couple of years we're going to see a sudden, oh, we got to sell all this old inventory because of the halving, or increase our inventory?
I mean, we sell a lot of miners during a bull run and we sell them during a bear market. Like there's times and periods in which Bitcoin mining is more profitable and you sell more miners. When it's less profitable, you sell less miners. But even in those situations, it becomes less profitable. All of a sudden you get some surplus and you get some better prices. Once there's a surplus in the market, whether that's used miners or old miners or whatever that case is because of suppressed, profitability, then all of a sudden miners become less expensive. They get bought up. It's a very real market. Like there's not a whole lot of markets that see that like direct, uh, supply and demand relationship. Like we see that in this space in real time and very quickly. Whereas, the halving cycles obviously impact profitability, but a lot of people have started to like, guess, okay, does that mean this price is going to go up? And then they try to buy miners at a low price and sell miners at a high price. And sometimes those companies fail and sometimes they succeed. So I don't think it's really, much like, I don't know. I think the halving cycle doesn't really seem to have an impact on the total velocity of sales. It just changes the price of the hardware based on availability.
I think that the mining industry right now is like very narrowly focused on basically one application, which is just plugging them into the grid and running them and sort of gaming the hash price. I think as we start to move away from that and go after a lot of the other applications that we know about in Bitcoin mining, like heat reuse and stranded energy and all these other fantastic things, it'll be a lot less tied to the Bitcoin price and to the hash price. Start to get more diverse in what affects these things.
Yeah, and I think something else is when you see halvings take place, what you do is you see a migration of ASICs around the world. So, for instance, this last halving, we've seen vast amounts of S19J Pros and other S19 variants leave the US and go to markets like South America, Ethiopia, Oman, UAE, Saudi Arabia. So what you're seeing is a rotation of miners globally. And for us, we're seeing a huge amount of demand on used or broken ASICs. So one of our big business lines is we'll go in and buy broken miners or working miners, air immersion, we don't care, and we resell internationally. So right now we're moving probably 10 to 20,000 miners a month. I'm talking S19 variants. So it's when you see a halving, how do you plan for that migration of ASICs globally? And then I would also say, and the manufacturers are going to know better than I would on this, but more so what drives sale is Bitcoin price rather than the halving event. When you have halvings, you're going to see a migration towards cheaper power with older generation. But I would say Bitcoin price is probably the best predictor of top line revenue on ASICs.
Does the supply chain issues that you've talked about affect the innovation that ASIC manufacturers can do, and in what ways? How does that change? Because it seems like it's pretty steady progression. Like you don't see many jumps. Is that accurate, or do these supply chain issues not really have any bearing? It is just business as usual. We're going to do what we can.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't claim there is an impact. Like the roadmap for like improvements in the product line, it follows like again several logics. Uh, the halving, like the constant need for more hash rate and efficiency, and I mean it's sort of like the iPhone, right? So like we keep improving. There is like the name of the game is an average, right? Average of hash rate, average of efficiency. And we want to keep pushing the boundaries, of course, to save space, save costs, improve profitability. And those are the major forces behind that. And the supply chain is more like it's secondary, let's put it like this. At least I would put it this way.
I think one of the things we might see in the future, like you brought up your iPhone, they stop, sending chargers with the iPhones because they're reusable components. You don't need a new charger every time. So the less stuff you have to ship, like on a supply chain side, maybe minor design changes where you only have to ship certain components or you're not shipping everything all at once. And so we may, if there's future supply chain issues, see how it affects, minor design to some extent. Whether they get more modular or a different form factor for like heat reuse applications or something along those lines.
All right, we got a couple minutes left. As we close out here, let's start down here at the end and just work the way down on some insights that you have that you could share with the logistics side of things. At least 3 or 4 of you have mentioned needing to start the logistics side of your companies when you hadn't been planning on that. So if you've learned something over the past few years or many years of doing that, what do you have to share in that regard?
So it's hire the best people and then outsource.
Mm, I want to discuss another ideas or I choose I'll discuss a lot with the TSMC guys. So we how to book some more capacity for the chips. Especially for the AI increased a lot. AI is increased a lot. The Nvidia book all I think they will take most of the capacity for the TSMC. So uh so for the ASIC the ASIC supply chains, the ASIC increase, we cannot increase a lot. It's become more and more traditional business. So there may be 10%, 20% of the market share increased every year. But you want to, if the S19 series can, it cannot happen again to 1 million or 2 million units per year. It's very, very difficult. So I want to share this information with us.
Yeah, my advice would be to pay for quality counterparties that are going to work with you if things go sideways, because they will at some point, and then make sure that you're properly insured and maybe even overinsured for a variety of scenarios.
I think from what I've heard, when Apple calls TSMC, they jump, right? It's like, how many do you want? Like, we can do this for you. Whereas other customers might not get that same response from a big foundry. And so why is that? It's because they buy a ridiculous amount of these chips, of the ASICs that they need for making iPhones and computers and things like that. So I think we have a real opportunity to massively grow this industry, the mining industry. And so that will enable all of the manufacturers to place bigger orders and hopefully absorb some of these other factors that control the demand for it and the supply chain troubles that go along with it. So let's just open it up and encourage like a lot more applications, so there's a lot more customers.
Also, I think, besides the logistic issues, actually, we should like to, maybe work with customers in advance to know the requirement. That would be very helpful for us to understand how to just maybe optimizations from our perspective, not only from one point.
Yeah, on our end, like from a perspective of a manufacturer, we don't have a logistics company nor plan to have one. But our commitment is to onshore some of our production here to the United States to mitigate the risks we all kind of point out here today. And I guess like the message for the market is to let us know like the demand for these specific products, right? Because if there is enough demand, like we will keep on shoring them and, mitigating these risks.
I mean, the biggest thing is it's so much better than it used to be, guys. Like, it is light years ahead of where we came from all aspects, whether that's supply chain logistics, from the manufacturers, from the components, from the infrastructure, from, repair shops, and, everything that within the industry as you guys see it today is leaps and bounds ahead of where it was, but we're still like, I feel like we're still in like 1990. So there's still a long ways to go. And there's like, I don't, there's a ton of, I could keep talking about this all day long. So, but like, I mean, yeah, I'll keep talking to you guys afterwards because this panel could be like 12 hours.
All right, thank you guys. Give a hand up for Gaio, Steve, Shanon, Skot, and Wright.